Lots of people are aware of Bitcoin's halving cycle, but are people aware of the full-on cycle that happens constantly, repetitively, in both directions? We've come to learn that this is very crucial information not a lot of people understand. Why don't we get into a little bit? Welcome to the channel. Let's get it going. 786 Assassins. All right, welcome everyone. 786 Unlimited presents market updates. We do this 3 times a week. Good to see you all here. It is March 10th, Friday. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon now. This video won't really be released till around 7 on the East Coast. I believe that's 4 out there for you Californians. So I want to go over this Bitcoin cycle a little bit here. Everyone's kind of aware that Bitcoin has a halving and that there's typically a bull market that's right then. Well, it's not really the case. And I want to show you all the information that I've got all the way back to the very beginning of Bitcoin and kind of give you a breakdown on exactly how we know what's happening, what isn't happening, how we're to be able to get in and out of this stuff fairly rapidly, and where we're heading next. All right, if you haven't done so, please, right here is the Launchpass link for our Discord. It's $8 a month, not very much. You can click on it. It's down in the description of this video as well. It helps you learn how to do this on your own without the help of anybody. Take control of your financial life into your own hands. Come hang out with people who have the big brains, who are willing to help other people learn how to do this as well. That's what we do in our Discord 24/7, 365. I spend most of my time there. If you ever wonder how I'm able to do what I do, well, the answers are over there. See you there. All right, so for some context, I've got vertical lines drawn here, and I want to give you an understanding of what these vertical lines mean, starting with the color code, okay? The blue lines in vertical form here that you see, I have them labeled. And this label's very tiny, and I don't want to make them too big because if I do, you kind of get a jumbled screen. But this is the peak of each bull run, all right? When it stopped, slowed down, kind of gave up on itself. The red line here is a midway line in between the bull run peak and the next halving cycle, all right? And halving cycles are public information. You can find this online pretty easy. I've got them marked here with a green vertical line. So blue line peak, green line halving, red line is midway. All right, if we roll back just a touch here, you'll see there is none of that information from the very beginning of Bitcoin. In fact, there really were no exchanges for you to get any of this on back then. So everyone always says, oh man, if I had bought Bitcoin at $1, what a, yeah, okay, it wasn't that simple. You had to mine it, and that was pretty much the only way you got it, all right? And it didn't come along until a while later where we got a cycle that we could easily see. So let's show you what I'm talking about now. All right, so during these bull runs up, you had this drastic price action that rose upward parabolically and usually ended off at the very tip top of these runs, closing out in a certain period of time, all right? These early cycles are a little bit wonky. The hash rate was very low back then, so things have kind of changed a touch, but not too much. Nonetheless, after you had this peak, you had a very dramatic sell-off, and these sell-offs tended to last all the way until this midway line, which you see here, all right? The white vertical line is the post-midway peak, and I've got that labeled right there so you can see it. It's just tiny, post-midway peak. And that typically happens in between midway and halving. All right. And it's not always perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Usually this happens in the summer. All right. This early Bitcoin cycle, the first halving, was kind of the only one that was a little like it, the other ones are close, but not exactly the same. So this is the first cycle, and I want you to notice the symmetry of it. All right. Bull run peak, midway, halving. You have a post midway peak, and you have this 100-day mark that is a little bit off on this one, but you'll see in a minute that it kind of lines out to the other ones. Okay, so I've moved to the right a little bit. Same chart though, same historical Bitcoin chart. Here's our halving. As you see, we already started making a run up before that halving ever happened. We had a run up. It wasn't like the halving was the jump off point. It was actually before then. And like I said, this particular part of the cycle is a little different. Nonetheless, we had our move up. About halfway from halving till the end of that peak was this purple line, and I've got halfway done written on it. Right around this time, we see a bit of a sell-off. All right, this happens every single time, and you'll see this as well. Nonetheless, here's our 2013 bull run peak. Afterwards, we had a long bear market. During this entire bear market, there was no point. There was no point in being in Bitcoin. None. Zip, zero, nada. You should have sold it. Just sold it. Screwed that one up, didn't I? You should have just sold it here. Stayed under the trend line the entire time. Here's our midway point between bull run peak and the next halving. We got through our midline peak, our midway point, and just after that, we broke north. Post midway peak was in the summer. You can see right here, July 2015. All this time here, really no reason to get into crypto again. You were stuck under the trend line. Nothing great was happening. Furthermore, what we're going to start seeing is that the amount of time in between the cycles here is damn near identical each time. Moving along, we broke this trend line after the post midway peak, which was in the summer. We kind of bounced around it. We wicked underneath it, but recaptured it. And then it took off again all the way to halving. And as you see, we had to run them up before halving. Shortly after, we did have a little sell off, but it just recaptured that trend line that it was maintaining right there in a parabolic form and stayed going. Here was halfway done with that bull market in between halving and the next bull run peak. That halfway done line was damn near perfect again. Here's our next bull run peak with a long, miserable bear market in between it. Here's our midway line. Again, the 100 days line starts to become evident here that we have a sell-off about 100 days before halfway. And that same thing happened back here. About 100 days before halfway, you sold off. Notice that? Okay, we were able to see the recent sell-off that happened in November based on this. We knew this was coming, all right? After around midway point, you break loose. Here's the post-midway peak. Again, July 2019. Okay, that's 4 years almost to the date. We had a peak in the summer again. Then we had a sell-off afterwards. This was our big capitulation that everyone blamed on COVID. I don't really care about that because if you look back in history, same thing kind of happened back here just after the summer. Okay, same thing here after summer. Then we had our halving. Here was our halfway point, halfway done. Then we had a sell-off shortly after that, but near it. All right, and then here was our bull run peak. Same amount of time from halving to bull run peak each time. And I'll show you that now. So right here was halving. Right here's our bull run peak. That's about 550 days. Okay, I'll scroll over to this side. What do we got here? Halving to bull run peak, about 550 days. Now, our next halving line isn't all the way, drop the camera off, until May over here. April or May of 2024. It may differ a little here and there. Nonetheless, that's our next halving date. Currently, we were under this big, humongous bear market line. We have broken over it right around midway. Look at the 100-day mark and how that thing capitulated over just after that 100-day mark, just like it did over and over again in the previous cycles. What are we able to derive from this? Well, we're able to see that during midway times, if we break this trend line, just like we did back here, we have our post-midway peak, which is afterwards in the summer. Here is the summer line right here, July 23. That's this year in a few months. Our current position is sitting on top of a trend line. Excellent. We have an availability to move upward till we get to this post-midway peak. That hasn't happened yet, but we can see that coming, all right? The cycle is going to continuously do what it does no matter what we say or do. Do you understand that? It is out of our control. So what is in your control? It is in your control when you buy and sell. We can already tell that when we get to this post-midway peak, we're going to have some sort of sell-off. And typically it lasts a couple of months. Not always, but typically it lasts a couple of months. So once we get to this midway point, I'm going to find a place to get out for myself. I'm going to wait on this thing to balance itself out before the next halving. How can I tell what's going to happen next bull market? How can I tell when it's going to be over? Well, very cyclically, we can measure here from the halving to the bull run peak, about 550 days. I can tell that roughly in October, November of 2025 is going to be the time when it's time to stop. Are you paying attention here? I'm able to call this within a couple weeks. So be watching. I'm not joking about this. This is serious. October, November 2025, sometime around Q3 or Q4 is going to be time to stop because that's going to be near our peak. All right. Very simple here. This is mathematically a certainty. Unless you turn the internet off, you can't stop this from happening. Nothing that we do can stop this from happening. Can we affect a little off the bottom or a little off the top? Sure. But nonetheless, the cycle will play out. All right. So I know halfway done, I'm probably going to look to scale out my position and rebuy in somewhere. I'm going to already be in before this halving happens. I'm going to have areas marked out where I think it's going to run to. Now let me show you some potential targets where I think we'll head out toward the top end. All right, Bitcoin USDT, I'm sorry, just USD, and this is the Bitstamp pair. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull Fibonacci retracement from the top of this bull market to the bottom of the bear market, and I'm going to see how far out we came and measure that. And then I'm going to compare that to other cycles here and see how it lines up. All right, I've pulled this Fibonacci retracement from this point to down here, which captured the entire bear cycle. And then you see the clean breakouts that we had through the golden pocket, through Sniper's Alley, into our take profit lines of 1272, 1414, 1618. This thing blew the top off. And when I say blew the top off, I mean it went through Fibonacci lines that typically don't get hit, up through the 2 line, all the way to 2414 at 20,000 roughly. It was actually like 19,988, whatever that number was, right? Just short of 20,000. That was our first bull cycle. And now I'll show you how far back down we came on that exact same cycle. All right, pulling from the bottom to the top of that very same cycle, we see we came to about the 382 line, which is a nice parabolic retrace. It never hesitated from this point, bounced immediately up and took off and created another bull market here. So let's go measure that one as well. Cool, so now we see Bitcoin got a little bit more behaved here. Instead of just running parabolically, it slowed down once it broke trend, as you see there. Then it started to dance around on top of the trend line. We did capitulate down, but we didn't fall off the face of the earth. All we did was pull back some. And we got right back over this trend line and stayed over it the entirety of the run, breaking through the golden pocket, breaking through Sniper's Alley, getting all the way up into our take profit fibs. Here's how we knew where to stop. It's a simple synopsis to say that as an asset gets older, it matures just like we do. The trading matures on it, and we start to get more mature numbers coming out of it. This is how we were able to find the top at 67,000 or wherever we sold. I think I sold at 64,000. Nonetheless, we were able to find near the top here and understand that, okay, this is the time to stop. The show's over. Turn out the lights. It's time to walk away. We use this information specifically to make as much money as we can and to save as much money as we can. And I'll explain over here on the chart. All right, so I've ran that entire fib up. We saw it hit 1618. Let's see how far back it retraced. So we'll grab from the bottom and we pull up. And when we do so, we see we roughly did a 50% retrace on Bitcoin here. Now that's a continuation fib as well, not a parabolic one, but a continuation fib nonetheless. We got right down near it and bounced. I expected this to come down a little lower, and it may end up doing that in the end of 2023, but I can't say that for sure right yet. We may get this particular move right here that happens somewhere over here in the end of 2023, potentially bringing us down there to that shelf level right here, but I can't for sure say that just yet. So what I can tell is we failed that 382 level, and we're back in the range between 382 and 50. We know for a fact that our next halving is not until way over here. So we've got some time to play with. We can tell that June or July is probably going to be our peak for the summer, somewhere around in there. And where would that leave us at? Well, we have upper resistance levels right here around 30,000 to 33,000 to roughly 38,000. So somewhere around in this area for the summer marks my point where I want to stop and walk away, somewhere around this line up here. Okay, that's where I'm going to be looking for the price to come up to and stop. In fact, if we look back in history, we can see that Bitcoin has shown us 68% upward retraces and even higher before during bear markets. Here we are right here, same situation I just showed you. This one actually did a 786 last time. It went from the bottom to 786. Look how far we've gone so far. From the bottom, just over 382. That's way up here where it could potentially go in the summer. Now, I doubt that's going to happen, but there's a possibility. Same situation down here. From the bottom to the top, Look, we ran up and did about a 50% retrace. So a 50% retrace, a 78% retrace, and so far we have only done a 236. This is why I think we have more. And what did I say that level was that I was looking for? Right around 33,000. That would be a 50% retrace, somewhere in there. So this is what I'm looking for, about 33 to 40,000 on the upside here for the rest of the summer. Then I'm expecting a sell-off, and after that sell-off, I will rebuy, and I'll ride that joker to the very tip top. Where do I think the top's going to be? Okay, bear with me here. Two options. If we go no lower and we do not break that low of 15,500, our upward targets are as such. Number one, we're looking for 40,000 first. All right. And this is what I'm talking about, 2024, 2025. Not this year, but next year and the year after. All right. Not this year, 2024 and 2025. Okay. So after that, after we hit that 33,000 level, I expect 40,000 to 45 to get hit, maybe cause a little bit of a problem, maybe slow us down a little bit, but furthermore, sprint toward this 786, 886 level. Once we hit this level, we should slow up a little bit, and the thing should have some time to catch up and get its breath and decide what it wants to do, one step at a time, okay? From there, our upward targets, if we go no lower, are 105, 129, and 176. That's $176,000 per Bitcoin. Now, I don't think this cycle is going to be over in June 23. I believe we're going to have some upward sideways stuff here, and we could potentially get something that does something like this, right? If that happens, I'll have a different bottom to pull from. Let's assume for a moment this thing comes down here to the bottom of that little yellow line that I just drew. So I'm going to re-pull this fib. I'm going to pull it a little something like so. That gets me out to about July 24. I know we're going farther than that. I know we're going way out till 2025 before this thing ends. That puts me at 113,000, 146,000, and 211,000. I don't expect this blow off top to happen. I never expect that. I always have a more pessimistic view. This way you don't get your feelings hurt. All right. So again, first levels you saw. Here's my second levels, 111, 146, 211. We'll have to see how this plays out as we go. We don't have a guarantee. One more thing to show you, and that'll be it. All right, here's the entire Bitcoin chart on a weekly time frame, okay? I'm going to show you this all-time trend line, and you'll see that we're actually under it, and we failed it a while back. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it, and I'm going to pull it to the most accurate place I can, all right? Nothing's perfect here, but I'm going to pull this, and as you'll see, we are stuck almost dead under this trend line right now. In fact, you could argue that we rejected off of it and haven't broken it. So I'm going to pull this line on out some more here. So I've got it out to about January or February of 26. If I pull this Fibonacci line again, like I just had, and we get some stupid number of around 10,000 to 12,000. All right, I'll pull that down here to around, let's see, this is March 26. That's too far. So let's go November 25, and let's say it hits around, right here on this shelf, around 10,000. If that happens, our trend line is in the way of progress. Do you see that? It's in the way of progress. And that's going to hang us up at about 118, 156. Somewhere around in here will be where the point where everything stops. This is why I don't think this is a distinct possibility right now. I lean more toward an upward shelf level, maybe 13,000 or so before we stop. And if that happens, that opens up the door for, 111, 139. And if we get all the way to the tip top, we can pull this out to maybe February of 26. So that's the other option that I didn't talk about yet. If this thing draws out an extra couple months, that'll put us at 192 on the top end. Now, that's not a guarantee. We could come up short of that and just do 109, 138. These are all solid price targets. We can understand one thing about charts and TA. The mathematics does not lie. The mathematics is true no matter whether we like it or not. So Keep in mind, none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I just analyze charts for a living, constantly, nonstop, 24/7, 365 days a year. I rarely take a day off. So take my information with a grain of salt or take it at heart. I don't really mind whichever one you do, but understand this is my full-time job and I don't play around. Now, thank you all for watching. I appreciate everyone coming on here. I hope everyone gets a little bit of information out of this. If you have questions about this cycle, jump over to our Discord and ask. Please, I have the historical charts there for you to see. If you're a member and you jump over, you get constant access to this stuff 24/7. Right here is the link, okay? After you click on the link, it's $8 a month. No one's trying to break anybody. It's fairly inexpensive. For what you get, it's thousands of dollars worth of value for $8 a month. Like, come on. $8 a month is nothing. That's one venti coffee. So thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone. I'll leave you with this. In the words of the late, great, notorious B.I.G., you could have been anywhere in the world. You chose to be here with me. I appreciate that more than y'all can realize. I'll see y'all on the next video on Monday. Be good. Peace. Sky's the limit.